Hello and welcome to 27 by 40. My name is Chris.
This is Emmett.
This is episode 5.
Yeah.
And this week we're doing posters from 1951.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen this before, we look at all the movie posters of a given year and we each pick our top 5. Seeing the movie, not a requirement. We're basing these posters purely on whether we like them or not.
Yeah, it's sort of our personal, artistic appreciation, I guess, of the poster. That being said, the movie can have some influence in some cases because, the meaning of, that poster is more meaningful. Not necessarily consciously maybe, but, there are no real hard and fast rules, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Fair enough.
How you decide upon... The main thing is just that it's not... You're not deciding... It's not just a list of, your favorite movies of that year. Yeah. It's based off of the posters. Yeah. Now, how much... how you like the
sway
movie
there is...
that may be a part of it, but it's not, an essential part of it. It's all based off the poster.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about that is that, we've kind of really noticed that, every era kind of has its own style that is, the common...
Because so far we've done... we've done... Now,
85.
We've done 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yeah, basically,
now. And then we're hitting 50s with this one.
And early 90s.
Early 90s, specifically.
That's the thing, too, right? Is that, when you talk about different eras and stuff like that, sometimes it's just because we're doing one particular year at a time,
stuff can change over the course of a decade.
It's early 90s might not be the same as late 90s.
But there's definite trends in movie posters over time.
Yeah.
And the 50s, no difference there.
Yeah.
This is definitely
dozens of westerns.
Oh, well,
all look exactly the same.
The style of movie for sure. Yeah, it's westerns. Light romantic comedies and some war movies.
Yeah,
it's
and they all have not all, but most of them have those painted, but those kind of old fashioned painted style,
kind of ugly.
And a lot of them have.
What if we painted all our lead characters in a very unflattering way?
And a lot of them have. Yeah,
it's usually
the
background of the poster is a solid color.
Yeah.
Then it's the title in some wild painted font.
Yeah, and it's often on an angle.
Oh yeah. It's it's trying to take up as much room of the poster as possible.
Yeah.
And then it'll be either a single painted thing in the middle of a couple of the characters or the little squares of each of the.
The posters on this year kind of made me think of they're more they're less how you would typically think of a movie poster, and they're more paperback novel covers.
They're lined very blurred. They feel pulp novels for sure.
Yeah, pulp.
Absolutely, that was the first thing I thought.
Pulp magazine covers, even a little bit comic booky in some ways, old school comic booky
again
kind of thing.
That style,
which is sometimes
probably similar artists working on all of those things,
which is sometimes okay. And I actually have some on my list that fall in that that I think are good.
Yep,
but a lot of them are just really forgettable because they literally just look exactly the same as dozens of other ones.
That's what I was saying when we were talking about this before recording. I was when I was looking through this year and the list I had, there was alphabetical, and I'd go all the way through the B's, A's, all the way through the B's, and I was they're all the same. They're all the same. I've maybe picked one poster out of 40 that I've looked at.
Well, it's really tough to decide because it's how do you pick one? For example, say with westerns, how do you pick one versus any other one? Because they all look the same.
A lot of it just came down to
preference.
It's just this one's just painted nicer.
Well, and I think the quote,
colors are better.
Even the quote that you said when we talked about it a little bit before was basically what the ones that kind of stood out is to pick is anything that was different.
Yeah.
Because there were so few that were different that or distinguished themselves in any way that those really stood out.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because again you get into that thing of just apparently we just aren't super into posters from 1951, like that style. Turns out because
and I don't know if this is like a reminiscent of maybe a late 40s, because this is 51.
Yeah,
this could be reminiscent of a late 40s style, still bleeding in.
Yeah.
By 55, posters could be totally different.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, I guess we'll see if it ever comes up in the future. But
So starting this week, you're first on this one here.
Okay.
So let's bring up your first pick here.
All right. My first one is the Walt Disney Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was kind of just like in the midst of all of the ones that all these kind of same looking things, it just came across as like fairly pleasant to look at.
Well, being that it's an animated,
and it pops nicely, like the mix of colors and the way, like it's not like an assault on the eyes. Like it has enough space. I like the fonts and the like the way it's laid out works for me.
This was in my also
the sort of
almost made
that half and half split with like the picture, the single picture in the top half and then the bottom half being like the title and everything.
Again, fits in a bit what you were saying with like very much like a novel cover from the era where you have like
for sure. But yeah, it just, I don't know, it was like it's more pleasant on the eye than a lot of the other ones.
Yeah.
And
well, the painting, which is funny, the poster is a painted poster, like most of the ones from this era. Very few photo ones.
Yeah. I mean, they're definitely there, but they're not really anything to really write home about either.
But the style that is painted on this is not how the cartoon looks.
No, I mean,
which is a weird
approximate.
Like, why wouldn't they make it look? It's already an animated feature. You didn't have to make anything
approximate
up.
because they do. I mean, they used obviously the character designs and stuff. Like the characters look.
I mean, this is classic early Disney. Like art style in their non-animated stuff, like their picture books and stuff all look like
but
this.
The characters look the way they look, it's close on that regard.
I actually found I think it was an Italian version of this poster, which is a little bit different. Like Alice is like actually sitting up in a tree, and stuff, but I couldn't find a good quality of it, and so it went to my
as per usual. A lot of these have more than one. You know, they have variants and stuff. But I always usually try to stick with the standard like theatrical release poster whenever possible, if it makes sense. To do that. But it's my 5 because it's not like I don't feel strongly about it.
No, but it is a good poster.
It pops nicely. It's pleasing to the eye. And like I said, I like that, like the sort of 50-50 split, the way that's done.
It's very clean.
Yeah, which is like a rarity with stuff from this time. Like they tend to be very kind of just
Technicolor vomit,
scattershot. That's my 5.
All right. So my 5. All right. Hunt the Man Down, which is very much.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, the like typical poster for this year.
Yeah,
but.
It's got some nice touches.
I think
although it looks like that guy's being abducted by aliens.
I'm
gonna guess
it's
meant to be like a spotlight or something.
I'm guessing
like finding him,
or this guy's got like weird beam vision and he's like zapping him or something. But I really like the art style done for the different characters. Actually looks good.
Yeah.
It doesn't make them kind of look like weird like underground chud people, which is often the case. But it does. I sort of picked this one because I think it was the best, one of the best I saw that typicalizes what most of those posters look like.
Yeah. I mean, it's got like the on an angle.
The fancy
cartoony on an angle font for the title.
It says RKO Presents, which like so many of them do because RKO presented everything back then.
It was pretty major.
They went a little more arty in the background. It's not just a solid color.
I like the way the little character sort of
like
thumbnail,
the portraits,
kind of things, portraits are done like that. That's there's some thought that went into the graphic design there. It's not a bad one at all.
A little crowded, but.
But it's not too bad because it's got good the delineation between the different sections and the colors and stuff. It's not overdoing it with the colors. It's not a bad one at all.
But then again, to what you said, like if this was just like a dime store like paperback, that like also looks exactly like that too.
Yeah.
Like it's
Secrets buried in search for killer.
yeah. They love to put like some kind of thing on there that tells
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
you know.
Well, it's like it's very because they didn't have.
Well, they didn't
really-
have you didn't have trailers on TV. You didn't
Yeah,
have,
like they.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, like TV
You had
existed, but it
you
wasn't.
had to show a little more information in your
Yeah.
poster back then because that was the only way you.
Well, and not just information, you had to sell it
Yeah.
real hard on the basis of the.
Which
So the posters tend to be a little more like sensationalistic
Mm-hmm.
and sort of like a little more kind of like we're selling it.
Yeah.
We're trying to sell the movie with this
Yeah,
poster
yeah.
by
well, which is why they always show like so much of
catching
the
your eye
cast,
and-
right?
yeah, catching your eye, putting a lot of the cast,
Yeah.
putting some kind of like message,
Yeah.
like, and I mean, yes, like those things are all part of posters from other eras as well,
Yeah.
but in a very different and maybe slightly more subtle way. That
Well, because often
they just-
now,
at the-
by the time you see a movie poster for something,
Yeah.
you've probably seen at least one trailer for the thing.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the movie poster's
or
like
an ad on TV,
the movie poster's like the third tier of what you see now versus like the only tier
Yeah.
or the first tier
yeah,
that you would
it's
see.
mostly
back then.
like the purpose for movie posters later on was mostly like when you were already at the theater to go see something else.
Yes.
And then you'd see a poster and
Oh,
be
like,
like,
that looks
oh, that's
interesting."
coming out like next week? Oh, that, or a couple of weeks. Like, oh, that looks interesting.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
we'll come back for that.
It draws your attention to the things that you didn't see the trailers for in front of the movie
Yeah,
you just
yeah.
watched, right?
yeah. Whereas I think that because that,
had
like
to do a lot more lifting.
you weren't getting, ads on TV and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that,
Which, like, I mean, I realize looking through this from, 2020 eyes,
Yeah.
pun intended,
Yeah.
looking back at 1950s posters, I'm going, I don't think these posters sold anything to anybody. These all look boring as hell. But realizing, from 1950s eyes,
Yeah.
these were like, wow. These were almost like outrageously probably compared to
Yeah.
like how you would advertise other
Right.
things,
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah. All right. So that's my number 5, Hunt
Okay.
the Man Down.
Cool.
All right. Your number 5.
4.
4. Sorry, your number
It's
4.
An American in Paris.
Gene
Kelly.
Yeah, I love this movie.
There's a couple different ones for this one. This is sort of like the main.
Mm-hmm. I think this is
actual
the-
one that I
yeah,
found.
yeah.
Mainly, I like it. It's the reasons for this one are very similar to the Alice in Wonderland one. It's relatively clean. There's
Yeah.
not a lot, not overly too much going on. Still, a lot of white background and stuff. It's a little bit easier to see. It's a nice little. They're selling it on like okay. You got Gene Kelly. You got some dancing and some. You got Paris and like it's like fairly straightforward. Like it's not sort of trying overly too hard, but it's got like a cool like the handwritten sort of title is kind of interesting, and the way it. What a joy to see MGM's Technicolor music. Like it's just very. It's
The
very
vibe of this
friendly.
poster really matches the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's very friendly and warm in a way that is like these kinds of movies. It's like what I like about them. Like there's this kind of like this sort of almost like not innocence necessarily, but I guess like a quaintness.
Yeah, yeah.
That is of course completely artificial.
Yeah.
But like it's like you can go back and look at movies like this through that lens of just like it's like this like it's like a warm blanket and a cup of hot chocolate
Yeah.
to just sit down and be like,
Watch some Gene Kelly.
yeah. And I think that the forget your cares and and I feel like this kind of poster encapsulates that sort of feel very well. And like I said, it's nice that it doesn't have like too much going on. It's like fairly
That has got to be some of the smallest like story blurb on there though. Like if you see this poster in real life is it big enough to really read properly.
Yeah.
The Adventures of an XGI in the City of Romance.
Art students Bob. Yeah,
Art Students Ball, biggest, most daring ever filmed, screen's most spectacular musical.
Sure.
Yeah. Interesting in 1951, still pushing the XGI.
Yeah.
Like, the war had been over for a while.
Not that long, so fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah, it's
That's a good
basically
one.
it's just very like
The cleanness is very
it's
nice and very rare
safe,
for the era.
It's very kind of inoffensive, and like I like the movie a lot, obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just kind of it doesn't assault my eyeballs, so you know I like it.
Yeah, no, it's good. That's a good one. All right, my number 4.
Oh yeah.
So this is very much a boom cover of a magazine, cover of a. I mean, could even be from.
Yeah.
You know,
But it's like more. It's definitely a lot artier than like
Yes.
the typical. Yeah.
interesting how color is placed into this movie. This movie's in black and white,
Right.
but nonetheless, we see.
But that's very common.
Oh, yeah, for
Like,
sure, for
Most,
sure.
You know.
Nonetheless, the artist is depicted. I forget the
Gort.
general. Yeah, more in green.
Yeah.
And it's like, was that dictated to him?
I think they wanted it-
or did he just make that up?
I think he was supposed to. He was intended to be green. Obviously, in the film itself, he's kind of silvery gray.
Yeah.
And I mean, certainly, I think the suit was itself because they knew that it was going to be black and white. But
Yeah.
like, I think the original idea was that he'd be green. But I don't
okay.
know. I don't
Well,
know.
that's cool.
I don't know that for sure.
Okay, so this is somewhat.
But I
based
do
on-
like the whole kind of like how they have this sort of like semi kind of lurid like
Yeah.
he's holding the you know.
Well, it's got a bit of a King Kong
Yeah,
vibe.
and it's just
there.
like there's nothing like that in the movie.
no,
That's
no,
not what
no.
the movie's about.
No,
you know,
no.
but that's another very common like going for that sort of cheesecakey kind
Yeah.
of thing. It was like another very common thing with posters from this era.
So, a little
you know-
more subtle on the title work here. The it's just kind of much more like the day
it's
the
a
earth
long-
stood still. It
That's
is
because there's so
long.
many words.
Yeah. You know, no super tiny text on this one or anything like that.
Yeah, but there's definitely some very like artistic interpretation.
The
I mean,
giant
like, the hand on
hand,
the
yeah.
earth and stuff like that's
All the armies and the people and everything below there.
Yeah, a
and-
lot of artistic interpretation.
Yeah, I thought it was just like this is just a good piece of art for a poster.
Well, I remember-
considering that how most of the ones don't have.
Well, I
that.
remember like when we first hit upon like when we first found out, oh, the next episode is 1951.
Yeah.
And then I was talking about like, you know, oh, like there's some good stuff from 51, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. And like one of the things I mentioned was Day There So Still. And you were like, right away, you were like, oh, that's a good poster.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, is it? Because I hadn't seen the poster at that point. I'm very familiar with the film, but like I've never like had a reason to sort of look at the poster because the context in which I've like been familiar with it has always been like, oh, like I've watched it
just-
on TV
yeah.
or I watched it on, you know, like a movie channel on TV or, you know, and so like, you know, I never really had reason to like, you know, obviously we weren't around when it came out. So
Yeah.
it's like I never really had reason to see the poster. So I was like, okay, that's the poster. Cool. I didn't know.
Makes me wonder, like, often now too, like, you know, going back when we were talking about like what the purpose of movie posters now is, and it is often like, well, that's also the DVD, Blu-ray, whatever cover.
Yeah, oftentimes.
like,
or some
going
variants.
back, like thinking like, I mean, obviously that didn't exist back in 1951 in any form, wasn't?
well,
but
they-
like, is this the cover of the Day the Earth Stood Still like DVD? Or it's been so long. There's
I'm sure they
probably a
probably
dozen
have-
different covers.
Yeah, they probably
right?
have different
Like,
ones,
yeah,
but
you know,
yeah, I think it might be similar.
yeah,
And of course, back then also they would have had, in addition to just like the straight up theatrical poster, they would have maybe had sometimes like maybe for certain movies, probably not every movie for sure, but like for maybe some of the big movies, they might have had like newspaper ads,
magazine,
or you know, I think maybe even billboards were a thing already.
well, that's where a lot of the wide style
Yeah,
posters
and,
come from. Yeah,
And probably they would have had what do they call it? Like the one sheets, right? Like
Yes.
it had things that you could actually like that they could hand out, like
yeah.
almost like a
like a flyer,
like a
They're
flyer
flyers,
almost,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
That would have
absolutely.
been probably available at theaters and things like that.
it probably had showtimes on the back or whatever.
Yeah,
and then,
who knows? But yeah, things like that. Like, so, there were definitely various avenues where you might see. But yeah, that's cool.
All right. So the day the Earth stood still. Okay, so now your number 3.
My 3. My 3 is Rhubarb, the Millionaire Tomcat. Never seen this movie. Never heard of it before this, but it's great. A poster. It really stood out because I was like, it was like the most different.
Yes.
I was like, there is nothing else from this era
Giant
that looks
cat
like this.
in the
And I love the art style. I guess it was originally from like some kind of like a cartoon, like not a cartoon, but
it was based on a novel. And it was. I think the cover of the novel was similar.
Yeah, but I think they made like maybe like a comic strip.
Oh,
or
okay,
something like that.
yeah.
And, it
Something
was
the
a
funnies,
well-known. The character was well known already when they made the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the like the logo and the typeface, like the way that the
typeface for Rhubarb is very good.
And the cat, like the actor, like where it says like Ray Milland and Jen Sterling there, like the way that's written, like it's so
very specific kind of.
It's so specific. Like clearly that is just literally somebody's.
Yeah.
And it looks a little bit similar to like the Disney kind of.
It actually does.
thing,
Yeah.
Actually, but yeah, like it just there's a few different posters for Rhubarb.
This almost made my list.
Yeah.
When I saw the one
the laughingest picture,
the one that's all white with just like the cat on the money right in the middle. Like it doesn't show any of the kid, doesn't show the cast on it. And I was like, oh, that is super good because that one it's so pop. I could not find one, and I didn't like this one as much, and so I left it off.
I like it,
but. I was looking at this. I was like, oh, interesting. So I looked it up. Okay, so it's the laughiest picture in 9 lifetimes. I looked it up. Evidently, did not do well. Was not considered very funny. No chemistry between any of the characters. The cat was completely like flat in the movie.
Don't ruin it for me, dude.
I was like, oh, that's too bad. Because I'm like, this poster makes me want to see this movie.
Yeah.
Well,
it doesn't matter because it's a great poster.
Yes. No, it's very good. It's very good.
But yeah, I really like it. It was definitely the one that, it seems like every time we do one of these, there's one that's like just a complete discovery. Mm-hmm. Like, I've never heard of this movie. I didn't know, like we had the one.
No idea what Rhubarb was.
Yeah, like for, what was it, 91 or 92, we had like that Run.
Oh, yeah.
It was one of the early 90s ones where it was
that,
like, I've never heard of this before, but like, wow, that's a really neat. And I just was like, yeah, Rhubarb, sure. Yeah. I like Rhubarb.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a great poster. Mm-hmm. I really, really like it a lot.
Yes. Yeah, it's a good one.
And that's why it's my 3.
Mm-hmm. No, okay. All right. My 3. So this is the big epic movie from the year Quo Vadis. Is that how it's pronounced? Okay, yeah. Big painted, but like for me it was like, oh, it's like the most like coherent of those painted styles. Like it's got the cast and stuff in it, but it didn't like break it up into like the little individual like vignette, but like posters. It just kind of like made this like collage where everything kind of is painted. It feels like it's all a single work of art rather than a bunch of stuff put on there. Really like the most colossal ever. It does feel colossal looking at what they're showing there. It's got like a Ben-Hur vibe kind of.
Yeah, I'm sure it was in similar vein.
We got some.
Or Taylor Deborah Carr.
Yeah, Deborah Carr. Yeah.
Peter Ustinov.
Yeah.
Well, I've definitely heard also the director there is Mervyn LeRoy. Mm-hmm. I've definitely heard that name. He's definitely done stuff that I've seen, but I don't know off the top of my head what that might be. Mm-hmm. But I've definitely seen things that he's did, but I haven't seen that.
Yeah. There's also a big animal poster. We got bulls, we got horses, we got leopards.
Well, I think it's supposed to be like Rome, right?
Yes,
so
that
was like a big thing for Rome.
Yeah. But it just really pops. The whole background is just fire. This poster is fire, as the kids would say. But yeah. So, all right. So that's my number 3.
Yeah, it's that one doesn't really
doesn't do it for you.
No, it's not my my favorite. But I mean, that's what makes it interesting. We have slightly different. Mervyn LeRoy was the producer on the Wizard of Oz. That's where I know the name.
Okay.
That explains it.
All right. So now your number 2.
My two is African Queen.
Nice.
I think that's a really great. It's definitely it's in that vein of like the sort of like pulp novel, comic booky kind of cover.
Name and quote, movie name and quotes.
But I think it works really well. Mm-hmm. I do think it's funny that it makes it look like a lot more action packed than like what the movie
That's what I thought
is.
when I saw this. I was like I don't remember this movie being this like.
I mean, there's some actiony bits, but definitely not like the whoa, like action packed kind of.
Yeah.
You know. But obviously selling hard on the actors. And I just think it's like a really nicely laid out and.
So it's got even though it's got like the nice big painted center there, it very cleanly separates like the actors and stuff
the
like
art,
that.
Yeah, I think the art's really nice.
Yeah. It looks really like the actors. Looks like the actual actors. Yeah.
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, Katharine Hepburn looks a little younger than what she actually was.
A little younger, a little paler
in the movie, but a little more kind of like old school kind of like starlet kind of look, which is like not really what she looked like in 51, but
Humphrey Bogart's got a few more muscles in him.
Yeah. But
I mean, definitely the era. If you want posters of like muscly dudes with their shirts off, 51 full of them.
But I just think it's really nice.
No, it's a good one.
I really, really like that one.
It was also in my also rounds.
I'm almost kind of surprised he didn't have it because
All right. So my number 2.
Oh yeah. I saw that one. I kind of thought about it for a second because I was like,
so different
because it's so different, and
this looks like a 80s poster.
70s maybe.
Yeah, so like the late 70s. Yeah.
It's got way more graphic design to it. Yeah. It's way more like surreal. Mm-hmm. It's definitely very different than your typical 50s.
I kept going like, is this a poster from like a remake from like later or something like that? Like I didn't because I know it's a 1950s movie. No, I'm like, did they remake it later with a different poster?
They just went real arty with it.
They really did. I feel like it's definitely a poster kind of ahead of its time.
Yeah. I consider this one, but.
A little more subtle in the like how they wrote like that's the title of the film and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, the vertical kind of setup is kind of interesting.
A lot of empty space.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like none of these. It definitely something like no empty space is a lot of part of a lot of the other ones.
I went with a little bit of that myself with the American Paris one.
Yeah, a little more minimalist. Yeah.
But obviously not as much as this.
No, this.
This is definitely the
most.
We
don't even get to see a clean shot of any of the actors' faces in this.
Yeah, this is definitely the most different.
Yeah.
And the most like it that doesn't feel like a product of the time when you compare it to other ones. It's definitely I can imagine this being like really standing out,
really pops,
really
also strange enough I really like this movie too, so it's
I'm not familiar with it.
No, it's good. It's got
Frederick March is a great actor.
Always Kevin McCarthy. It's got some.
It's an older Frederick March because I'm used to obviously 30s Frederick March.
Yes, He's already a bit older.
This is quite a bit older. Yeah. This is like 20 years after Dr. Jekyll, Mr.
That's right. Yeah.
So Jekyll,
Dr. Jekyll. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That was like 20 years earlier. But obviously, he had a long career. He's a great actor. Mm-hmm. I saw this one. I definitely strongly considered it. I guess you could call it like a also ran kind of thing. I didn't end up going with it, but it's a good one. Right. It's definitely the most different. It's definitely the one that stands out the most in terms of being unlike any other 50s one.
Yeah.
or 51 anyway.
51
at least.
Yeah.
I don't know if the later 50s are the same, but
All right. And so this next one is your number 1.
yeah.
All right.
And it's Taylor's.
Oh, it is today. Oh, okay. Okay. So that's the crossover we had.
Yeah,
there.
it's the same one.
Yeah. Great poster.
Obviously, it's a huge favorite of mine.
That's a little bit different than the poster I had, actually. This one's got a little more color to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a different... I mean, it's the
It might
same-
just be a better quality. Might be a better quality.
Yeah, it's just a
than the one
different
I had.
copy. It's
Yeah.
the same poster.
Yeah. Just mean like the hand and the world in the middle there.
Yeah.
I think are like almost black and white in mine. I think you just found a better picture.
Yeah, it's just a different copy.
Yeah.
It's got a little bit
Yeah.
different color timing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still the same poster. It's I mean, it's awesome. It's a great movie. It would definitely be probably my favorite movie from that year.
Yeah. No.
Because it's just very classic.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about it before. I'm pretty sure it was on that I talked about it when we did 50s movies way back when.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Because this
zero idea what I picked.
I mean, that was ages ago.
Yeah, and that was a whole decade
many,
too.
many
so
years ago.
I
But
probably didn't have it on there.
But the main thing I love because that movie has amazing dialogue.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of like really, really memorable lines and things that like just really stood out in terms of that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So
Actually, I have your top 5 1950s list here. Would you be interested in hearing what it is? It's number 5, Stay the Earth Stood Still.
yeah,
4, Seven Samurai.
right.
3 is Forbidden Planet. 2, Singing in the Rain.
Yeah,
Number 1, Vertigo.
right.
Yeah.
And I've talked about how the fact that like since then I've definitely got on the Rear Window train that like I prefer Rear Window to Vertigo.
Rear
now.
Window was my number 2.
Yeah. And that was when we talked about 50s 50s Hitchcock films. That was the split.
Yeah.
But I think now I probably have migrated further over to the Rear Window side of the coin. I feel like it's aged better. But I understand. I mean, obviously, Vertigo is still very highly praised, and it's still considered one of the best movies. But I just feel like for me personally, like if somebody was to say, do you want to watch Vertigo or Rear Window, I'd be more likely to lean towards Rear Window at this point.
Yeah.
Right.
I think Rear Window is just kind of more rewatchable than Vertigo. Maybe
that's what it is. Maybe it hasn't necessarily it's aged better, but just that it's more rewatchable. I don't know. But anyway, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the Day of the Earth Stood Still a lot, but it's obviously in the overall scheme of the whole decade, it's a little more low key.
But for the year,
but
definitely.
for that year, I don't think there's much that I would put higher just because of my preferences and like what I like, but just because I love the dialogue and stuff so much. There's so many lines that like I really love to quote and just reference.
Very well written.
Yeah. So, and that falls in line with like, I was just like, come on, that's such a great poster. I mean, like just the artisticness of it fits so well. It's great. So yeah, that's my one.
All right.
But I guess we still have your one.
My one.
What's your one?
I briefly for a sec forgot what my one was.
Oh, okay.
And my number 1 is When Worlds Collide.
Yeah, I did see that one. That was pretty impressive too.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely has the same sort of
This
sci-fi.
sort of made my one because it's like the audacity of the poster and like what if half the poster was just the name of the movie and the other half is a scene that I guarantee you does not happen in this movie?
Well, not in that way.
Because it would be like they'd be hard pressed to pull that scene off nowadays.
Well,
not to say they wouldn't. That doesn't mean they wouldn't put it in the movie.
Yeah,
but,
I was gonna say. I mean,
there's lots of crap.
Obviously, the artistic interpretation with the painted art of the poster wouldn't be what it would actually look like. But that doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
Yeah. But just the like, obviously, I guess it's like this other planet crashing into what I guess is New York, because that's the Empire State Building. The giant waves, the people running away and screaming.
Presumably like early...
The stray jet just flying away. I don't know if that's story relevant or not. It's just so... This is very much like if I was like a young lad in the 50s, I'd be like, I want to see this movie.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's got that kind of sci-fi, like, much like...
looking at that, I think sci-fi posters, and this probably maybe has something to do with just due to like, well, a lot of that stuff came out of like pulp novels at the time. The sci-fi posters were some of the more artistically pushed posters, like the Earth Stood Still. There was a couple of other ones.
So it says it's a science fiction disaster film based on the 1933 science fiction novel of the same name. The film's storyline concerns the coming destruction of the Earth by a rogue star called Bellis and the desperate efforts to build a space ark, so that's probably what the ship is, to transport a group of men and women to Bellis' single planet Zira, or or however you say it.
So there's actually straight up lies on the movie poster, because it's a star, not a planet.
Well, it's other than... I guess because it says planets destroyer.
Yeah. And it says when worlds collide. There's no worlds colliding. But fair enough. I mean, that wouldn't be...
Well, they're using it in a broad sense.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I was like, this is just... to me, this is like combines the best of what this era has to show in terms of like, okay, it's
produced by George
doubling down on the like crazy title. But still, like, there's still a decent amount. Like, it's quite clean in some ways.
This might be actually something worth watching.
When the Worlds Collide, put that on the list.
Just to see like how they actually play.
Yeah, how it actually plays out.
And George Powell. Oh, it was produced by George Powell, and he's got a good track record.
I mean, that still can be fun anyway.
Won an honorary Academy Award for special effects.
Oh, well, that alone might make it worthwhile.
I don't think there was.
Seeing some 1951 special effects.
It was also nominated for Best Color Cinematography.
Wow. Well, at a technical level,
losing to American in Paris.
Oh, okay.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Because
at a technical level, it might be worth a boo then.
Yeah.
So maybe look forward to that in the future over on the What We've Watched podcast.
I mean, it seems, like pretty much the critical response was pretty much across the board, like not great, but like the effects were very impressive for the time.
Well, that is our posters for 1951, our poster choices. I think we sort of covered everything that year has to offer with our pick there, the variety there. We had quite a lot. Sometimes it's hard not to just pick like, well, I like these posters the most, and then they all kind of look the same. Is that just because I enjoy that style, or is it just because I didn't enjoy any other of the style that year had to offer? We sort of encountered that a bit. Yeah, exactly.
So it's all good.
Yeah. But yeah. So now let's fire up the wheel here and find out what movie we're going to do next. Just make sure I took out 1951. I did. And clicking to spin. There we go. Around and around it goes.
Hopefully we get some a
little bit later.
No.
Ooh, 1979.
Actually, that works. That works.
Yeah,
that's different enough.
That's a little close to the 80s.
Yeah.
It's far enough away from the 70s we've done.
That's different enough, I think.
Yeah.
That'll be an interesting one, I think.
Yeah. We might have to in order to get something a little more recent, we might just have to bypass the wheel on an episode.
We might but that's not bad though, because that's definitely different enough. Like
good movies this year, a lot of good movies this year.
Yeah, obviously.
Will they have good posters? We won't know.
Yeah, but I mean that's different enough from like 71, which is what we did before, and it's still like a good distance from like 85, which we did.
Yes.
That works. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
All right. I think that'll be a good one.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks with a new episode. Until then, I'm Chris.
This is Emmett.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.